passive investor side is really the silent partner that just says, hey, here's my $50,000. And by the way, you can give that in cash or through a self-directed IRA that they actually allow you to choose what you want to invest your money in.
Hello, everyone. We're Jacqueline and Melvin Landry, and we welcome you to our podcast, Get Diversified. Throughout these series, we'll cover all the topics and questions you have about investing in apartment buildings, storage facilities, and mobile home parks. Being knowledgeable in these areas will help you feel more comfortable about investing. Apartment investing equals building wealth. Building wealth equals financial freedom. Achieving financial freedom allows you to spend your time with building memories with your loved ones. Let's face it, time is the one element in life that is limited, and you don't want to waste it.
What's up, folks, and welcome to Get Diversified. My name is Melvin, Landry, and this is
Jacqueline Landry,
better known as Dear. And today we are talking to you about the benefits of passive investing.
And why are we actually talking about passive investing today? Because most investments that you make, the only way that you make money is when you actually sell them, like stocks and bonds, right? You purchase them, when you sell them, you'll make money. But in multifamily real estate, you can make money in 3 different ways. And that's what we're going to actually talk to you about today. So how do you want to tell them a little bit? You just want to tell them about the 3 ways, and then we can get into the details about each one of the ways to make money?
Sure. So we'll speak to 3 aspirations of how you can make money in passive investing. The first one is cash flow. The second one is appreciation. And the third one, tax savings. Do you want to elaborate on the first one, cash flow?
Sure. So let's talk about cash flow. But first, I want to give you an example of what a passive investor, what that actually means, because that actually scares some people when we meet somebody for the first time and we use fancy words like passive investing, and they like give you this look that they don't know what you're talking about. So let's say, for example, somebody finds an apartment building. It's $10 million. The bank gives them half of that, right, in a loan. The other half they actually need to raise from other investors. Mm-hmm. They have a general partnership team that can range from 1 person to 4 or 5 people. And those are the people that are doing the work. They're making sure that the transaction closes. They're making sure that they're doing any improvements to the property. They're making sure that the property manager is doing what they're supposed to do. And lastly, that group is making a decision on when to sell the asset again. And typically that's anywhere from 3 to 5 years. We're actually seeing some longer hold times, like up to 7 years. Yep. So that's the general partnership side. But the passive investor side is really the silent partner that just says, hey, here's my $50,000. And by the way, you can give that in cash or through a self-directed IRA that they actually allow you to choose what you want to invest your money in. And as a passive investor, you provide that to the general partnership team and you sit back and enjoy the benefits. So that's where cash flow comes in. So once, the property closes, the new property management comes in and kind of takes over if that's the case. Mm-hmm. Once the property is stabilized, so we really know what our expenses are. We know what kind of rents we're getting. We know what's really going on in the apartment building. Then they'll start to pay some dividends. And typically, on a apartment deal, they do quarterly distributions. So they take a look at what their cash flow is on a quarterly basis. And if there's excess cash, they want to distribute that to the investors. And that means the passive investors as well as the general partners. So it's a little incentive for the investors to see some type of cash flow. Now, look, don't think that this is a get rich quick scheme. Multifamily real estate is a long-term investment. It's definitely not something that's short-term. But the nice thing about multifamily is you do get some kind of quarterly distribution if the property is performing is performing above what they thought it was going to be. So that's one of the nice things to do. And depending on how much money you put in the investment, that could be substantial. Yeah. And actually today what happened. You can share with them about the email that we got.
Yeah. So as a result of one of our passive investments in a deal that's located in Cincinnati, Ohio, we got our first distribution check today. So the process and protocols of passive investing is true. I'll say from a general partner standpoint, they are their prime target is ensuring that the business plans are being implemented. And with that implementation, as passive investors, we sit back and we reap the benefits. And that first distribution check felt good on our most recent asset that we invested in October 2022.
Yeah, so just a few months ago, and literally we didn't forget about it, but we were shocked to receive the email that we were getting some distribution so quickly. Because typically you won't see that first distribution at least for 6 months. And in this case, it's 3 months in. We're seeing a little bit of money, and we're like really excited about what the next distribution is going to look like. So let's talk a little bit about the second thing that we talked about, the second way to make money, and that's through appreciation. So this is really the big play in multifamily, right? So when do you make the most money? It's when the asset gets sold. So again, the property is acquired by the new owners. They make improvements to it, and they make improvements that are really going to make the property appreciate, right? They may put in new cameras. They may put in dog parks. They may, increase the amount of amenities they have. They may change the property managers that are keeping track of costs, or can better manage the tenants, or make sure they're doing more accurate background checks on the tenants, making sure that they collect deposits from all the folks, make sure that they're, doing everything that they're supposed to. So then once, the apartment building appreciates and the asset is sold, typically what we're seeing is a 1.5 to 2.5x on your investment. So let's put that in regular terms. I'm just going to use a 2x return just because that makes it real simple. So if I invested $50,000 in an apartment building in 2022, and 3 years later they decide to sell it, I would get a check back for $100,000. So remember, if I invested in cash, then I'll be getting money wired right into my bank account. If I decided to do a self-directed IRA, it goes right back in the IRA. So literally, there's not much that you have to do there. You do get updates on a quarterly basis from your general partnership as to what's going on. You can ask them any questions that you want to make sure that, you feel comfortable in what they're doing. And really, you're not doing anything but just sitting on the sideline, collecting those quarterly distributions, and at the very end, the big chunk of money where you're doubling your money. So remember, not every deal is double. Sometimes it's like 1.5x your money. Sometimes it's 3x your money. So it really depends on, the economic situations and, what happened between the time that the apartment was purchased and when it was actually sold. Do you want to add anything to that before we talk about the third point?
Sure. So regarding aspirations of cash distributions, typically it's market dependent. So depending on how the debt was purchased for that specific asset, we'll make a determination if you get those distributions or not. So every distribution is not a for sure thing. So be sure to check with your general partner for specific updates to kind of understand and know what those projections are. Again, these are just projections. Okay.
Yeah. And the one other thing to note on the distribution is, if the general partnership team, they're not quite sure. Should we pay out a distribution this early? Should we not? You may not get a distribution, a quarterly distribution. And you know what? I would actually thank my general partnership team to being like, hey, thanks for being conservative. Thanks for keeping that money in reserve in case something happens. And I would, as a passive investor, rather see a 2x return versus a 1.5x return because I got some distributions, throughout the hold period of, between year one and year three. So, again, that's just kind of something to keep in mind. Distributions are not a shoe-in. They don't always happen. but more than likely appreciation always happens. And I always tell, my friends and family, when was the last time that you ever seen rents go down?
Yeah.
I don't think ever that I've seen. So anyways, let's go on to talk about the third way to make money in multifamily. And that's through appreciation through tax savings.
I'll speak to the notion of tax savings. So you think about your existing situation, and you know what? The most amount of expenses you will more than likely tender in your lifetime will be taxes. Let's be real. For myself, I'm not a fan of paying taxes, and I'm always looking for unique ways to try to minimize my tax liability. Multifamily real estate allows for you to do that. When you think about depreciation of an asset, right? Being able to depreciate your costs and your expenses relatively quicker than on the respective normal terms will help support your overall tax bill. I'll say this much: through multifamily real estate investing, it has been indeed a huge benefit to us. We've saved boatloads of dollars in taxes, and we're always looking for opportunities to invest passively to improve our position from a multifamily standpoint.
So let me give an example of that to put it in perspective for those that may not be familiar with tax savings, right? So let's say, for example, that you passively invest in $300,000 in the year. That could be one deal, it could be 4 or 5 deals, whatever. That doesn't really matter, right? How you actually segregate that out among your investments. Well, what happens at the end of the year, if your general partnership team does a cost segregation analysis, basically what they look at is they try to break down the amount of depreciation into smaller pieces so that you can take the benefit of depreciation sooner. Right? Yeah. Because remember, we're only going to hold these assets for anywhere from 3 to 5 years. So I don't really care what happens in year 4 through year 27. Right. So the more that we can bring that depreciation up front and allow our investors to take advantage of that, that actually benefits it. So let's just take that example. We spent $300,000 as a passive investor in a deal, and they did a cost segregation analysis. We would be getting a K1, so that's just a tax document that it would actually reduce our taxable income by, let's just say, $140,000. It's not a hard and fast rule. Again, it has to do with cost segregation study. So if we happen to, at the end of 2022, if we happen to owe $10,000 to the IRS, now we just flip the script. Yeah. Instead of owing the IRS $10,000, we are now getting a refund of the difference. Mm-hmm. The 100 and
net passive loss.
The what did I say? 120. What did I say? 140,000. So you would actually be getting a refund for 130,000,
give or take. Right, that's a ballpark estimate. But on your K1, right, you would get a net passive loss as a result of that. Yeah. And one thing we want to be sure that we kind of notate to all the listeners here: be sure to check with your CPA to make sure your respective situation allows for these accelerated kind of depreciation aspirations from passive losses. So while we're kind of speaking to the notion of the benefits of passive real estate investing, always check with your CPA when in doubt and when you have questions.
Yeah. So 130,000, that can be your spouse's salary that you now just got a check from the IRS because you decided to passively invest $300,000 in a multifamily apartment deal. And that doesn't even take into account these other 2 areas that we talked about: the quarterly distributions and the appreciation that you're going to get when this asset gets sold. It's crazy. And this actually blows my mind. And when I start talking about it, I start moving and acting Italian like I am. So it's just, it's really cool to know that this exists and there's more than one way to make money with your investment. So, dear, I know that we've kind of talked about those, the 3 areas to make money, but what would you like to leave the listeners with as a final thought?
I want to kind of rehash back on those 3 respective terms that we kind of spoke to, right? There's 3 ways that you can gain benefits as a passive investor. One, cash flow, right? Who doesn't like cash flow? We love getting distribution checks, but at the same time, we like sponsors who are conservative and also like to implement the business plan as well. Because at the end of the day, when we're looking forward to the sale of that respective asset once it's time, we want to get the maximum benefits that's associated with it. Okay. Next, appreciation, right? In any general, typically real estate market, real estate tends to appreciate over time, right? There have been some anomalies where there's been some short dips, but for the most part, real estate tends to appreciate over time. You, as a passive investor, you're looking to get those respective gains that's associated with it. Lastly, tax savings, right? So again, we've made the notation. Please check with your CPA because everyone's situation is different, but being able to get tax advantages, taking advantage of bonus depreciation as a result of multifamily real estate investing. I mean, who likes paying taxes? I know I don't. Anything we can do to garner tax savings is a benefit and a win-win for us. And we want it to be a win-win for our investor base as well.
Yeah, and just one thing that I wanted to add that we probably overlooked is this depreciation tax savings that we're actually talking about. That actually was 100% in 2022. So that allowed you to take 100% of the bonus depreciation. It's called accelerated. In 2023, it's actually 80%. And it's going to be reduced by 20% each year until we reach zero and it gets phased out. So if you're thinking about passively investing, do it now where you can get 80% and understand what a good feeling it is to reap the benefits of bonus depreciation. So just wanted to mention that. I think we didn't mention that when we were talking about the tax savings. So again, we wanted to thank you so much for listening. We know you have a lot of things on your plate, as do we all. So we hope you found that this was useful. And if you have any questions, please reach out. We're happy to jump on a call, have some coffee if you happen to be in the Pittsburgh, PA area. We would love to chat more about multifamily and any questions that you have.
So on behalf of myself and my beautiful wife, Jacqueline, thank you. And until next time, we'll see you.
Jacqueline and Melvin, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to listen to this episode of Get Diversified. Please make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on future episodes. Finally, stop by our website and follow us on social media. Ciao for now. Make it a great day, and we'll see you next time. And remember, get diversified.